A lot is going on in the world. And it would be nice to have a united front in the Black community, especially amongst men and women who have this gender war concept going on. It would be nice to have a united front on a lot of these issues that would help keep us protected and safe amongst our own communities as the world is on fire. But I'm going to use an analogy in this video because I feel like analogies help us to compare and contrast similarities and parallels amongst ideas, right? I feel like a lot of Black men struggle to wrap this concept around their head when it comes to the similarities of their oppression towards Black women as to white men's oppression towards minorities as a whole. And so when they hear that, the ears close up, the chest locks up, and immediately you get defensive. And that is why that confirmation bias of you just want to be right versus what are we doing to our community, those conversations can't reconcile and heal until you can take a clear, honest look at yourselves. And just like we want white people to hold white people accountable, we're going to need Black men to hold Black men accountable. Welcome to Healing Not Heal, where we will talk about all things mental health and holistic wellness in a very transparent and culturally competent way. So I wanted to start off with an analogy, right? We hear this conversation go on all the time about what a woman has on. And so you hear this comparison that what a woman wears will attract the type of man that she wants, right? If you dress provocatively, don't be surprised if a man only wants you for sex, right? The analogy of that is if you are a materialistic, show-offy man who only shows off his materials and his attainment and his money, don't be surprised by the type of woman that you attract if she only wants you for your materials, right? But here are the nuances and the differences to that type of thinking. You're talking about simply a woman attracting a man for their desire, right? The difference is there is no control or threat of safety or concern when it comes to your materials, right? When you hear a woman trying to go after a man for his money, both behaviors are predatory, right? Going after a man for his money versus a man going after a woman because she has dressed provocatively. Think about the implications, however, for you going after a woman based on what she wears solely for sexual ambition, right? Now, consent is a thing, and I feel like that you all forget that concept. And there's a lot of men who forget that concept of consent. You feel like because a woman is dressed a certain way, that gives consent. If I come out and women started robbing y'all because y'all are wearing chains and this, that, the other, that is the same of taking something that doesn't belong to you, going through your bank account or taking something out your counter or off your desk, right? You would be completely offended and feel violated. The same thing goes for women when you are inappropriately imposing yourself on women, thinking that that is what they want. A lot of men will say, well, I just like these things. I like to dress this way. I like these. I like those type of cars. I like that type of whatever the case is. Why cannot the same thing be true for a woman? When a woman puts on a clothes, why does it have to be male-centered that she's thinking about the attention that she's going to get? Both of them, both have the same kind of ideology of, I'm doing this for me, but I know that what it can attract and what the conversations are going to be surrounding it. But who is at danger? Who is at risk of safety? And where did the ideology of that you get to impose yourself and your body onto other women? This is where those oppressive ideologies where you start to confirm and affirm yourself into believing that it's okay that this happens to women. And the irony of it all is that men created this patriarchal, capitalistic society that prioritizes wealth and attainment and materialism, and then turns around and resents women for it when that's not what we prioritize in the first place, right? When women get successful in businesses and get all these degrees, it usually goes back into the community in some way, whether beauty, fashion, wellness, health, nutrition, fitness, food. Usually when a woman becomes successful, her resources go back into the community. It's not that she doesn't take care of herself, but she does not prioritize attaining all of these extra things without thinking also of how I can serve. And so with men, however, there's this like selfish scarcity mindset of hoarding wealth and wanting to attain and aspire more. And it's almost insatiable. And you see it. You see it with a lot of the celebrity men that Again, I go back, I've said it before, this sexual conquest of you're not satisfied. You're still insecure with yourself. You still have low self-esteem. You still have low confidence. And it comes off with airs. It comes off with arrogance. It comes off with materialism. Instead of really trying to find the core of who you are and connect with people, I don't think it's a surprise to men or women to realize and recognize that men are visual creatures, right? And so that they prioritize sex and attraction over connection. And that's that's biological. That being said, this is where Black men step into that role of oppressor towards the Black women in the community by not accepting the reality of their views on women and why women choose to date and navigate themselves in relationships with men in the way that they do. If you know that you are prioritizing a sexual relationship, but a woman is prioritizing connection and family and intimacy, then her wanting to see an investment where you prioritize wealth, her wanting to see an investment and wanting to spend time with her and investing in her as a person shows actual interest in her versus all these ideologies and conversations about, not wanting to spend money and dates and 50-50 and all these things that really don't fucking matter. It's just a matter of you don't want to show your investment and you want to turn it around and make it a non-sexual concept and want you to be the prize when the reality is that we know for the most part, men want companionship, but they also want a sexual conquest. And then there's this conversation of men wanting to suppress and blame women, victim blame women. Well, if you didn't want that type of attention or you didn't want those types of conversations, then why wear that, right? Here's another analogy. You have a young Black man with a hoodie on who gets shot down by the police. Was he asking for that? Was he inviting that? No, he was comfortably dressed in the street doing what he was doing, minding his own business. Same for that woman who wants to wear what she wants to wear. The thing about it is that you want to suppress and minimize and reduce women down to a material thing. Again, men see women as this possession, as this belonging, and not as a whole person. And that is where we don't reconcile and we don't repair in our communities, because you are still having conversations defending yourself, defending other men, blaming women, trying to pick apart what women are doing, when in all honesty, women are really just expressing themselves. And we have these conversations not just with women. We talk about the trans community and other oppressed populations with just expressing themselves, being suppressed and criticized because it doesn't fit the patriarchal society that Black men want to feed into and be a part of. And because you see women as a possession and not a partner, you don't see the asset and you don't see the value and the benefit, the mutually beneficial relationship that can be developed by leaning into that femininity and that feminine energy and that women's intuition. You don't see how she can be of value to you. You just see someone that costs a bill versus someone who has ideas and a plan and organization and charisma, things that can help push whatever it is that you want to move forward. You are worried about scarcity and keeping things to yourself and being used and manipulated, that you don't see the value of. And here's the thing too, right? Because a woman can love you and a woman cannot be in love with you and still pour into you. Arranged marriages, I can tell you probably all of those arranged marriages where women weren't actually in love, that does not mean that she did not pour into that man. And so that in itself should really tell you a lot about the nature of women and caring for other people historically. And I feel like there's this ignorance of not looking at history, because we're very habitual creatures. We're very habitual creatures. So this predatory nature of men, it's not a new concept. Now, the thing with the Black men and the division of the family is that now you don't want to take care of the Black family, or you don't want to be a part of the Black family, or you don't want to pour into the Black family because you no longer see the investment in Black family. But the reality is, it is community that keeps us safe. It is community that protects us. And so to withdraw from that concept and that ideology and want to, I'll just be a gamer and I'll just sit and I'll stream and I'll keep my peace and I can masturbate. There's porn. There's all these things online to help keep men satiable, and a very insatiable reality is a distraction. Instead of like reconciling, taking accountability, and having conversations with our counterparts, with women, with healing and reconciling our traumas, our own traumas as men, because men experience trauma as well, reconciling and addressing your own trauma to come back into the Black community and want to build it up and build the women up, build yourselves up. Um, it's going to take some accountability of the oppressive natures that you have imposed on women, which means allowing women to express themselves a little bit more freely without you imposing that negative opinion all the time. These ideologies that you've learned from this patriarchal society about what women should look like and how women should behave, because that's not our nature. Do I feel like all of this is by design? Absolutely. Because again, if we cannot organize, if we cannot build upon community, if we cannot strengthen our families, we are weakened. We are distracted by what's going on in the news and what's going on in the world, the instant gratification of social media, the instant gratification of gaming and online platform streaming and all these other things. We are getting our attention and our fuel from other things that don't benefit the community. They lack awareness of what's going on in the world. There is no sense of safety or protection within our communities because of the selfishness of these ideologies. On the flip side, yes, there is some selfishness of women, but there are women who are building organizations and community environments that help support oppressed groups and help support oppressed communities. And so I think there are differences, and I think there has to be real conversations about what those differences are and what they look like, to really take an honest conversation about how can we move forward. And yes, that means taking accountability of how we've sexualized, oppressed, and traumatized Black women in these situations, and to frankly reconcile by allowing Black women to heal, by encouraging Black women to heal, because Black women are raising your Black boys. And so if you don't even see that cycle, if you can sit here and blame Black women, because here's the thing about that too, you can't traumatize Black women and then Black women are raising your Black boys and continue to blame that Black woman. Where was the Black man that traumatized that Black woman? Where was the white man that traumatized that Black woman? Right? And so these conversations become cyclical, but where does the conversation start with? Where does the healing need to begin? Who needs to take accountability? I'm not saying the blame is completely on men, but when we start to backtrack on where does it start, how do we get to the healing? Because if you don't know the root of the cause, if you can't pluck out the disease spreads. And that is what's happening. You are watching the disease spread because no one wants to stop it at the foot, cut it off and say this needs to stop. We need to have better conversation, constructive conversations about Black women, about unity, about community, about respect, about expression. Where did our ideologies stem from? Why do I feel the need to impose my ideologies on you? And what else? What helps us all as a whole? Instead of thinking selfishly of what helps me, what helps my community, what helps my family, what helps my people. So that's how I feel about it. I think women are moving forward in a very autonomous way, a very hyper independent way. Men are starting to do the same, which is completely fine. But I think that if we are looking at a world, an unjust world that is going to try to control and militarize everything, what benefit are we to each other if we're still arguing and we're still creating this division amongst each other and we're still having these conversations of separation and not unity, right? We want to continue to play the blame game. And again, I know it's no benefit to us to continue to blame, but how can we reconcile when the trauma and the abuse continues to happen? And I think that is the difference that we need to understand, is that the abuse and the victimization of Black women are still happening. And no one is coming to our rescue but us. So I'm going to continue to have these conversations. I'm still going to champion Black women. I'm still going to be a voice for Black women. And I care about Black men. I love you all. But I still think that there's some accountability to be had. And I still think there's conversations to be had about how can we support and protect Black women in moving forward. And so if you don't want to be a part of that conversation, great, because that means you're not my audience. But I truly feel like there has to be some level of reconciliation with our Black women and love towards our Black women in order to move forward. So I appreciate you being here with me today, Healing Fam. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. We continue these conversations. You can also follow me on social media. I will go ahead and that right there. Go ahead and follow me. Again, I'll be here every week. Thank you again, Healing Fam.